We expect the industry to improve headsets every year, both in hardware and software. But then the Quest 3S comes out and shows a downgrade compared to the Quest 3. If you follow VR news, then almost everything is crystal clear for you. The Quest 3S is just the Quest 2 on steroids. That's it. But is such a negative upgrade really necessary? Let's see what it can do, what has changed, and if it's worth the money. Watch the video until the end. The moment, the best VR setup is definitely the Quest 3. It has better resolution, a lot of VR games, exclusive titles are being released for it, and the platform is actively developing. The price of the 512GB Quest 3 is $500. Well, that's a reasonable price, considering the headset will still be relevant for at least another 3 years. Its predecessor, the Quest 2, hit the market a whole 4 years ago. You can imagine that a lot has changed in those 4 years. Compared to the Quest 3, it falls short in power and image quality. It has a pretty bulky body and uses old lenses. The Quest 3 has color cameras. They are needed for games and mixed reality applications, so you can see the real world through the headset. In the Quest 2, these cameras are black and white, and they weren't designed for mixed reality at all. These cameras are used for tracking the headset in space. Looking through them was only intended during the setup of the safety boundary. They also added a simple function to switch to the cameras, so you can go grab a drink of water without taking off the headset. Last year, EMR started to gain hype. A lot of mixed reality applications were released, or separate modes with EMR appeared in VR games. Meta itself is constantly improving it and actively promoting it, and honestly, it's not bad. Those who have been in VR for a while have refreshed themselves with a new format, and newcomers are getting less motion sickness. In some cases, using EMR is much more convenient than VR. In the Quest 2, EMR games also work, but it's not very pleasant to use them because the cameras have very low resolution. Despite the fact that the Quest 3 is the flagship, many prefer to buy the second Quest with outdated specifications. You can buy it now. Very cheap, for less than 30,000 rubles. This can be considered an option for students or for those who aren't sure if VR is for them. Meta was not happy that everyone who is reluctant to spend money on the third Quest is buying the second. They miss out on exclusives, they don't get into the mixed reality movement, their games are of lower quality, and in short, they are at a disadvantage in everything. So here you have the Quest 3S, at exactly the same price as the Quest 2. At the same time, you'll have a better processor, the same as the flagship. There will be mixed reality cameras, like the flagship. They increase the RAM to 8GB and remove the rings from all the controllers. But since you don't want to pay Uncle Mark for the flagship product, then you get limitations. Here you have the old Fresnel lenses, a large casing, and the same display resolution as on the Quest 2. So what's the actual problem with Fresnel lenses? 4 years ago, everyone was fine with it, but back then there simply wasn't a choice. All headsets came with Fresnel lenses. Their main problem is that when you put on the headset, you need to adjust the screen relative to your eyes to find the clearest area. If the headset shifts even a little, everything gets blurry. People often asked when they bought the Quest 2, is it normal that everything is so blurry at the edges? Yes, that's normal. But with the Quest 3, I can just quickly put it on and get a great picture. The same goes for other headsets that have pancake lenses. The image is clear across the entire area. Another obvious advantage of pancakes is that the headsets have become much thinner. Compare the casings of the Quest 3 and Quest 3S. In the video, it looks like the Quest 3 was squished in Photoshop. Now compare it to the Quest 2. The 3S has become a bit more compact. There's now a separate button at the bottom to switch from VR to MR and vice versa. The old system is still there just in case. You just have to double tap the headset on the side. Right now, you can't reassign this button to do anything else. In the future, if you believe the insiders, it might become customizable. The IPD adjusts just like on the second Quest. You have to manually shift the lenses in 3 positions. Honestly, it's so uncomfortable for me. I like the dial on the Quest 3 more. The front casing has a total of 6 little eyes and one tiny thing, which is the light sensor. With its help, the headset understands how dark the room is and how much it needs to turn on the IR backlight. The 2 lower eyes are infrared cameras for tracking the headset and controllers. The 2 upper cameras are 4 megapixel cameras, and on the sides, there are infrared lights that illuminate everything around in dark conditions. 2 things are missing: the headphone jack and the proximity sensor. This sensor determined when the headset was on your head. If it wasn't, the screens would automatically turn off. Now, because there's no sensor, you have to manually turn off the headset's display. And accordingly, when you put it on, you have to press a button to turn them on. But don't worry too much. The displays will turn off by themselves after a while if the headset is just lying on the table without movement. Well, it was just. Take a look at this impressive unboxing. Seriously, I was so thrilled when I opened the box. The package includes the headset, an 18-watt power adapter, and 2 controllers that are just like the ones from the previous model. They come with AA batteries, and there's also a spacer for those who wear glasses. With the purchase, you now get the exclusive Batman Arkham Shadow and a 3-month Quest Plus subscription. With the subscription, you can grab 2 free games every month, plus there's a catalog of 20 games, kind of like in Game Pass. On top of everything, subscribers actually get exclusive offers. These are either discounts on games or trial versions. If you're transitioning from the previous generation of Quest to the new one, you can use the same account. All purchased games will be available, and for developer mode, you don't need to create the organization again. Obviously, after the 3rd quest, there's a downgrade. The Fresnel lens in 2024 feels like something from the past, as if it wasn't 3 years ago, but in a past life. The resolution and, consequently, the clarity also drop when compared to the flagship. It seemed to me that the Fresnel lenses on the Quest 3S have improved a bit compared to the 2nd Quest. So, the light spread's a little wider, there are fewer chromatic aberrations, slightly less noticeable God rays, and higher contrast. But all of this is so minimal that even in a head-to-head comparison, many won't notice. The field of view is the same as the Quest 2. There's a slight margin of error in the measurement images, but it's definitely 100% the same. Personally, it's enough for me. The diving mask effect is, of course, present, but this is the limit where the brain is ready to perceive VR immersion and doesn't pay attention to the edges of the mask. In Screener, the effect exists, there's no escaping it. But you'll forget about it right away if you're playing games instead of looking for pixels. It doesn't work that way with movies. When watching a movie or video in VR, all the optical flaws pop out against a black background, which even the most visually impaired people will notice. I didn't really like watching movies and videos. On the Quest, the edges are a terrible, blurry mess. On top of that, an unpleasant God ray effect shows up in movies. In games, however, all the optical and screen flaws are much less noticeable. In theory, native games on Quest should get an image upgrade due to higher rendering resolution. I found information online about the numbers for this rendering. I don't know if that's true or not. I'll talk about how it is in practice. If you compare 2 identical games without graphical updates on Quest 2 and 3S, to be honest, I didn't see a difference. But now games are gradually getting individual updates for Quest 3, and they are automatically applied to Quest 3S. Naturally, such games look much better on it than on the older headsets. Also, all the exclusives that were announced only for the 3 will work on Quest 3S as well. If we're talking about a true exclusive without other platforms, right now there's only Batman Arkham Shadow. Owners of Quest 2 and Pro definitely won't be able to play it. In December, Alien Rock Incursion will be released. It will only be available for Quest 3 and 3S for standalone play. However, if you have a PC, you can also play it on Steam. Well, there's also Hitman 3 Vera Loaded, but honestly, it's not much to be proud of. Don't want to say anything more. I think Quest will now get at least one big exclusive game every year. Asgard's Frost 2 was released for the 2nd Quest, then that's it. I think now Meta and other developers won't waste their efforts trying to shrink a big game down for a weaker processor. In the end, the quality and specs of the cameras in Quest 3 and Quest 3S turned out to be the same. The only difference is that mixed reality on Quest 3 might seem clearer simply because it has better displays. You should understand that the quality of the pass-through mode on both headsets is still not perfect. There are distortions and fuzziness, especially in darker lighting. It's hard to read anything on a computer or phone screen. To switch to VR mode, you first need to outline the room. The new headsets do this automatically. You don't have to do anything. The headsets recognize all nearby objects and suggest an optimal play area. Both Quest 3 and 3S handle room scanning excellently. In fact, Quest 3 has an infrared projector, not a LiDAR, as we usually say. It projects light strips onto surfaces and creates a depth map based on their distortions. A similar technology is used in the Face ID of iPhones, but there, it's dots instead of strips. The lower model doesn't have such a projector. Next, I'll share our assumption. There is no official information on how the 3S scans the room. Most likely, it uses the principle of stereoscopic vision. The headset compares images from 2 cameras and builds a depth map based on that. In the new Quest, 2 infrared projectors also assist with this. They add information about light and shadow falling at different angles. This technology is simpler and cheaper than what's used in Quest 3. In practice, the headsets perform equally well for their tasks. The controllers, in my experience, are tracked just like in the 3rd version. Playing Beat Saber at high levels is more than comfortable, it's actually great. where the controllers fall out of the camera's view, predictive tracking is used, and it works really well. Problems start behind you. If you raise your hands above your head, tracking dies. I don't blame Meta for this. I think they did everything they could. Additionally, you have an alternative control option with hand tracking, which works excellently on all Quests. Only Apple Vision has managed to outdo Meta in precision. Surprisingly, the Quest 3S has an advantage over the flagship. The cheaper headset can work in the dark. Both the controllers and hand tracking function, but you should keep in mind that it still won't work as well as in the light. The tracking radius in the dark is quite small. You need to keep your hands directly in front of you and not wave them around too much. The most challenging part of all our tests is discussing battery life because, firstly, it takes an incredible amount of time, and secondly, everyone will have different results anyway. It depends on the game, the degree of battery degradation, and the display brightness set, so I won't provide exact numbers. According to our measurements, the Quest 3S lasts about 37% longer than the Quest 3 when it comes to the headset's battery. With the old battery, the result was also good. The power bank lasted about 45 minutes longer on the Quest 3S compared to the Quest 3, so you can confidently go for the cheaper M3 Pro instead of the S3. But we didn't measure the new batteries, sorry. They last over 4 hours on the Quest 3 and will drain even longer on the Quest 3S. And now is the perfect time to talk about accessories. As you may have guessed, you can safely use all the mounts from the Quest 3. This is the BoboVR S3 Pro, BoboVR M3 Pro, Syntec, or any other mount that says for Quest. The controllers are identical, so the controller covers from the 3 also fit. Only prescription lenses will fit from the Quest 2 to the new model. The faceplate on the Quest 3 is completely unique. The current faceplates from the Quest 2 and Quest 3 do not fit here. In terms of materials, it resembles what is used in the Quest 3. It's fabric and comfortable, but it doesn't have a mechanism to adjust the distance from the eyes to the lenses, and thank goodness for that, because it breaks very easily. By the way, unlike the Quest 3, the 3S doesn't have contacts for the dock station, so you need to be more careful with your choice here. Our magical Syntec cable with a charging port works. If you find the right power adapter, the headset will even charge. With regular cables without additional power, the Quest 3S works exactly the same as the Quest 2. The headsets gradually lose charge. We measured the discharge time, and they were dropping percentage for percentage. There's not much to say about PCVR. The headset supports Wi-Fi 6E, unlike its competitor. The Chinese model can already boast support for Wi-Fi 7. Through Virtual Desktop, the Quest 3S supports the AV1 codec. To put it simply, thanks to this standard, the resolution of the image in VR improves at the same bitrate as with other codecs. This means that with equal image quality, there's less strain on the router. Only those with a 40 series graphics card can try AV1. We fall into that category, but VD on Quest 3 still hasn't worked for us, even though Quest 2 and Quest 3 connect, without issues on the same setup. I don't know what the problem is. I've expressed my opinion about AV1 on Quest 3 several times. The image does get slightly better, but I wouldn't say it's worth taking out a loan for a new graphics card. AirLink works great. In SteamVR and Quest 3S, the default rendering resolution is higher than that of the two, but I didn't notice any difference in the image between them. After that, it's just pixel hunting. So what conclusion can be drawn from this? If you're thinking about switching from Quest 2 to Quest 3S and only using it for gaming, then there's really no point in that. In that case, it's better to upgrade to Quest 3 without the S. How do you play now without a 3.5mm jack? Well, now it's only with Bluetooth headphones. I've noticed for the umpteenth time that on all headsets, Beat Saber works poorly with Bluetooth headphones. Everything else is fine. Pico never had an audio jack from the start, so some people use an adapter, and for some reason, this adapter doesn't work on all the Quests. In theory, all Quests support USB audio. Maybe our adapter is just too cheap. In terms of built-in audio quality, I think the sound on Quest 3S is better than on the 2. There's no difference between the 3 and the 3S. Just so you know, I'm not an audiophile, and I like the sound on all the headsets. So who is Quest 3S for now? Let's start with whether Quest 2 owners should upgrade to Quest 3S. You'll get updated graphics in many games, and their number will keep growing. For example, while writing the script for this video, an update was released for the first Red Matter and for both MOS games. The second point is the exclusives of the third generation, but there are very few of them right now. And the third is mixed reality games and apps. I think these advantages aren't that strong. If you're going to upgrade from Quest 2, go straight to Quest 3. If you currently have enough money to upgrade to Quest 3S, it's better to save up for the flagship and keep using the 2 for now. You could consider Quest 3S as a second headset for a child or a spouse. Let's say you already have Quest 3 at home. Buying a second one like that might not be affordable. Or maybe you just want to play together a couple of times a month. Quest 3S would be a budget-friendly option for playing multiplayer games together. If you don't have a headset yet and are confused about which one to choose, I understand you. Right now, there are the Quest 3, Pico 4, Pico 4 Ultra, Pico Neo 3, Quest 2, and a bunch of options on the used market. Don't forget that there are also headsets for casual gaming, but objectively, Pico lags behind the Quests in terms of the number of games, third-party software, and functionality. Pirating on this headset is much more difficult. You can buy it for gaming. It has better resolution and pancake lenses. A person needs to output 360 renders of interiors for work. He might not even need to flash it to the European version. Again, for use with a PC, changing the firmware isn't necessary either. And among the Quest options, well, you already get that I'm promoting the flagship Quest 3. By all technical parameters, this is the best headset. There are, of course, PC headsets with higher resolution and better tracking. But there, the budget is significantly higher. If you don't have enough money for flagship solutions, then go for the Quest 3S. As the first budget VR headset, it's really good. And in addition to all the mentioned advantages, it will receive support longer than the Quest 2. That's all I can say for now. As we find some interesting tidbits, we'll make shorts or a separate video on this channel. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the future.